questions for Jared Franek?
Jared, when you were growing up in North Dakota, were there any wrestlers or any D1 athletes that you really kind of looked to emulate or were big fans of from, whether it's from North Dakota or other places?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I always looked up to a long time before my time, but the Steiner brothers, obviously, that came and wrestled here, so they were great examples that that I knew of and that I got to watch kind of grow up and see guys like that were only from a few hours away from me that excelled at every level they wrestled at through hard work. And I heard a lot of stories about them when they were younger and they didn't know much about wrestling, and their first few matches they got beat up, and kind of crazy what hard work and dedication for them did. And another one is Scott Schiller. Scott Schiller was a really, really good example on and off the mat for me. My dad grew up with his dad, so I got to know him pretty well. And yeah, he was just a class act on and off the mat, and kind of a lot of the way I approach the sport is kind of how he did it. And yeah, so those are some really good role models for me growing up.
You and Schiller are from the same high school?
Yep.
Did you guys cross paths at all, or were you too young before?
No, I was too young. I never got to be on the same team with him. But like I said, with my dad and his dad being friends, I got to, hang out with him. I went to watch nationals one year when he was wrestling, so I got to experience it a little bit and kind of be, you could say, friends with him. But it was more of just a big time role model for me at the time.
Did it kind of open your eyes that, hey, they've done this, I can do it too, even though North Dakota has Fargo, but not necessarily a wrestling hotbed, I guess?
Right. Yeah. That definitely, like you said, that's inspiration for any kid, let alone, being from North Dakota. We don't have very many that make it to the Division I level and have success. So being, people close to me and knowing them as people as well, not just, a wrestler that I see on TV, knowing them as a person and getting to hang out with them was definitely motivation to achieve the same goals that they did and know that I could do it myself.
I know in the past you've said representation is a big deal. How does that maybe influence how you think of, the kids that are looking up to you right now, from North Dakota, and kind of what you mean to, those athletes that are coming up?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's really important. It's always been super important for me. Bigger than wins and losses is, inspiring the next generation and trying to, live the right lifestyle and be a good example on and off the mat. Like I said, there's a lot of kids that come to, duels back at NDSU as well as here that, they want signatures, they want pictures, and taking the time to do that stuff's really important, because at one point we were all that kid, wanting to achieve those goals, and who knows what impact you might have. That might be just enough to get a kid into it, and they might have a great career out of it.
How important is this weekend from a personal standpoint and a team standpoint with what you got coming up?
Yeah, it's big. I mean, this duel goes, obviously the rivalry here goes back deeper, longer than I was even born, but we treat it the same way. It's a big duel. We're ready for the good competition, good matchup, top 5 team. Every one of us has a good match, a big match, and yeah, I'm excited. Nothing really changes in the approach besides being ready and continuing to, make those little improvements and get ready for March.
You wrestled at Oklahoma State before we were at North Dakota State, right?
I never did there. Never did.
So,
No.
Did you talk to guys in here that kind of have before, what you're kind of waiting to expect when you get there?
Yeah. I mean, I actually just talked to coaches about this, but I wrestled at the Big 12s, which were in Tulsa, and there was obviously a huge fan base of Oklahoma State. So I got a little taste of kind of how the fans are and how passionate they are. But it's a little bit different when you're Iowa and you got that target, especially with the history there. So I'm excited for it. Like I said, those big matchups are a lot of fun. That's what we're here to do is to wrestle and put on a good show for a lot of people.
Coach talked about your personality and that, not that you're never satisfied, but you always know that there's work to do. Can you kind of talk about that striving to continually raise your game regardless of maybe what the outcomes were?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking to improve. It's a funny thing about this sport is you're just never ever gonna perfect any piece of it. So, always looking to improve, and I think that kind of just goes back to the way I was raised and kind of my experience growing up through wrestling is I was always climbing for the next guy, and I was never the best at any age group. So, for me, that's been a big motivation, and coming here, I think there's a lot left in my wrestling game to kind of piece together here before March. So I'm looking to keep improving on that and peak when it's time.
What did you learn from yourself after the Penn State duel, considering you're going for that national championship and then you go against number one guy and it doesn't go your way? Just what did you kind of learn from that match?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to take away when you kind of look at it in detail, and it was about execution. He was in on the legs a few times, and I was in on a few times. He finished, and I didn't, and that's kind of what it came down to. And then getting away, you got to get away on bottom. So those are little things that I took away from that match that kind of really turned the tide of it. So obviously, we went back to the room. We're fixing it. We're working on it, and piecing together the recipe for March.
How big of a confidence booster was it to score 17 against Wisconsin and get some points rolling in a match like that before you get ready for the postseason?
Yeah, it was good. It was big. I mean, that's how we want to wrestle. That's how the guys on the team want to wrestle is score points and dominate. And it was good to get that flow back a little bit. Had a couple matches where I wasn't scoring much, so get those points on the board and look to keep building that momentum.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep.